So today we're honored to welcome Maya Kramer, a yoga and wellness guide, priestess and alchemist who has dedicated her life to helping people reconnect with themselves, heal and step into their fullest potential. Grew up in New York and returned to Israel. Maya bridges the worlds of East and West spiritually and practically through yoga, aromatherapy, and transformational wellness programs. Thank you so much, Maya. How are you doing today?
Hi, good. Doing well. Thank you for that intro.
Great. And so let's start from the beginning. So a little bit of how you grew up, how was your upbringing?
Well, it's a general question, but
Yeah.
I'm
You
basically,
can take
I
it any
was,
way you want. Yeah.
yeah, of course. I was born in Israel, moved to New York when I was four, um, and grew up there, grew up in the States in New York, with my stepfather and my mom. And my stepdad was a real, very much felt like my felt like a very much family, accepted us. My parents got divorced when I was really little, when we were in Israel, and my mom remarried an American. So
Hmm.
my dad, who was at the time only 30 years old and starting at a law firm, met a woman at 31 with three girls and raised us as his own, which was amazing. And we were very lucky.
No.
And I had a very beautiful childhood. I'm one of five kids.
Hmm.
I have three sisters and a brother, and they're all still in New York.
They all stayed. Okay.
Yeah, at one point, every one of them lived in Israel, but
Whoa.
none of them lasted as long as I did.
Whoa. How did
Yeah.
that? Why did the brothers siblings decide to go back?
Slowly.
Well, every one of us feels a connection to the country. Me and my two older sisters were born here. My younger brother and my younger sister were not, but they also at one point made Aliyah. Um, I think Daphna, my oldest sister, was the first one to make Aliyah, and she lived here for, I would say, a good amount of years, maybe even 8 to 10 years. She was a fashion designer. She met her husband here, but they ended up moving back to New York. And then after her came Donna, my other sister, and she also moved here for a few years. I can't even remember, and also moved back to New York. And started a family there. And then came me. We actually did it in the order of our age. And then I made Aliyah. And while I lived here the first few years, my brother lived here for a year. He basically came here and I hooked him up with some job at Benedict, which is like these restaurants that they have here. There's like 24-hour breakfast. And he kind of learned the trade and opened up a cafe in New York. He went back to New York. I think he learned a lot here um,
Well,
about the restaurant industry.
so
It's very
he learned.
big
Yeah,
here.
he learned the other way around. So he learned about in Israel how to open a cafe in New York. Okay, that's good.
Yeah, because the cafes here are like a mix of European with New York, the style and the vibe in Tel Aviv.
Yeah.
And that gave him a lot of inspiration. And I think there's a lot more challenges here having a business. So, in general, he had learned a lot and opened a very successful cafe that's been around now for almost 20 years. And my youngest sister also moved here at one point, and she met her husband. She was more in the south, like in the desert, and was met her husband, her future husband, in an ashram in the desert. They were
Hmm.
like these two hippies, and they also moved to New York, and now they have two kids, and everybody's there basically. Me, I stayed this whole time. I went through many lifetimes already. I've been here almost 20 years and not really planning on going anywhere.
Ah, we're glad to hear.
Yeah.
So how did you decide? How did you decide to make Aliyah?
Mm, well, it's interesting because it wasn't really thought or planned out. It was more of a feeling, an intuition. Was working in the fashion industry. I had at the time a production company for fashion photo shoots.
Mm.
And we were doing really well. And I had a business partner named David Goldsmith, and it was a boutique production company. I was traveling from Alaska to Argentina. I was a lot in the Bahamas and Mexico doing photo shoots, producing them. We had an
Whoa.
office in Miami and New York. Yeah, it was really thriving, and my life was thriving. I had an apartment in Little Italy, had a lot of friends. Everything was very like, full, but I was feeling empty, I guess.
Mm.
That's like now looking back. And I came to Israel for a wedding. And like I hadn't been here in years. Growing up in New York, we'd come here for the summers because my grandmother, Zichronah Levacha, lived here. And we would come here for like 2 months at a time. And I really was familiar with the culture and the people and the language. I speak Hebrew. And and I hadn't been here for years because I had the production company and my New York life. And, there was nothing really drawing me. It was my 20s and I'm in New York. And,
Right.
that's the time.
Yeah, it's
And
nothing more exciting than that.
right, exactly. So I wasn't really drawn to coming to Israel. And I was busy with my life and my stuff. And, um, and then we had a wedding here and I came and I was like, like something feels really aligned and right here. And then I went back to I think it was our office in Miami at the time, and I was on my computer. I was playing Galgalat, which is the Israeli radio station, and I think it was during one of the wars that was in 2006, seven. Okay, and like I felt this like weird, not weird, but I felt a connection to the country
Yeah.
and to the people, to the language, to like I was listening to the news and the radio station while I was working
Yeah.
on production. And then I was like, I miss it and I want to go back. So I went back. Like, I don't know, I just went back and
It's like a feeling. Yeah.
yeah. And I came here and I wasn't living here yet. And I came here and I like delayed my trip. And then I went and found an apartment like on
Because
Melchet Street, which is near Shenkin.
this is like
And
if everybody like doesn't know this, like center Tel Aviv. Yeah.
yeah.
Like not far away from the ocean, for the sea. Yeah.
And I remember at the time, this was like in 2008, the apartment was $750. Then at the time they were renting in dollars. And it was like a new building with an elevator and a balcony. Balcony. I've been in New York, or I've been living in the city for almost 10 years. I was paying $1,500 for a box. Like literally, I was
Yeah.
living
Yeah.
in a box in Little Italy. And I was like, what? And I like went back to New York. And within 2 weeks, I packed my whole life.
Whoa.
I left my apartment. I left my business partner who didn't talk to me for 10 years. Like he was
Whoa.
like, I just left him. I just left everything and landed in
That.
Israel from the airport to my apartment and just started a life here with no plan, with no agenda, I knew some people here and there, but I know I needed to be here.
Whoa. It's pretty unique.
Yeah.
So what was your first impressions when you just came to Israel? Of the people, of the culture differences?
Yeah, there's a lot of elements here. So I would say the first culture shock was the way people speak to each other here. Um, Very loud and rude, and I was a New Yorker, right? So I'm like,
You weren't
I was
unfamiliar with that, but
yeah.
it was a different degree, even more than in New York.
It was so much so that like I remember a cab driver picking me up, and it was before the apps, right? Picking me up, and I was like, I don't know, 5 minutes late. And he started like yelling at me, and I started crying. He's like, "Mom, what's wrong? No, I'm sorry. This is how we speak." And like, and then I remember also seeing people like fighting on the street, like having an argument, and they're like, "Bye, achi," and they hug when they would say bye to each other. And I remember then. It's weird for me to say it now because it's so not like a thing now, but then it was like very shocking. I was like, what is going on here? That was one thing. Then there was the other aspect. I just moved into my apartment. I get a knock on my door, and it was during Pesach, and my neighbor and her husband brought me matzot. And I was like, what do they want from me? Like, why are they knocking on my door? Like I had that. And again, it's so strange after being here for 20 years that this was the way I was thinking. Like that is very true when you make these changes and shifts because the culture here is different. And I'm like, why am I in New York? I didn't even know my neighbors. I lived in the same apartment for years. Never even, I wouldn't even be able to tell you who my next door neighbor was. And here the neighbors from upstairs are knocking on my door. I'm like, who's knocking on my door? I like got scared for a second and she gives me the mitzvah. I'm like, thanks. Does this mean I have to have a relationship with them now? And yet all of that was the reason I so love living in Israel.
Yeah, of course.
The openness, the bluntness, right? So people are yelling but being honest with each other and the kindness. Like so all of this was the culture shock, but then it was really the reasons why I feel so at home here. If somebody asks me today why I still live here.
Right. Yeah, it's less of a fake world. Here, the people are real. If somebody doesn't like you, you know he doesn't like you. If somebody likes you, you know he likes you. So, yeah. And I wanted to ask,
Skip over all that. Yeah.
what did you say?
I said you skip over all the
Yeah,
BS.
all
Right?
the
It's
niceties. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. Always for me, it's weird when I lived a little bit abroad in Australia and the States, and people are just like, you don't know actually if anybody likes you because everybody's so polite. So you have no clue if is he just nice to me because he's nice to me? Does he want something from me? Is this just like him being polite? Yeah, you never know.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I wanted to ask you also, what drew you in? We're gonna skip to the next topic. What's drew you into the wellness world? We're not structured here, so we can always bounce back between
Mm-hmm.
different
Mm-hmm.
topics. But how did you was there a turning point from the fashion world?
Yeah. I mean, look, when I moved here, there was something much deeper that was happening beyond what I knew at the time, right, with me and my path and my connection to Israel. But what was really like the turning point, well, I would say, look, when I first moved here, I went to my comfort zone. I was working in fashion, and I did really well. I was I had like I was teaching at Shinka, which is the fashion school here. I was styling. I had a clothing store. I had a startup in fashion. I was doing TV stuff in fashion. Like I was
Wow.
in fashion. It's what I knew, but I was still feeling that emptiness. So here I am moving to a country thinking that I'm going to be filled,
Mm-hmm.
but that's not necessarily what was going to fill me in the end, right? It wasn't going to be something from the outside. So I was doing all this work and doing well here and making friends and, thriving in terms of my success and, everything around it. And then I had gotten accepted onto a television show called The Amazing Race, the Israeli
The
Amazing
Israeli
Race.
version? Ah, okay. Yeah.
And I remember in one of the interviews, I think we had already been accepted and they were just filming. I was with a boyfriend that I had at the time. And I remember like I came to Israel with this like New York facade, like confidence but as I was saying before, I was still feeling that emptiness, but it was kind of this image of what I was. So I come to Israel and I kind of took the New Yorker into Israel. So here I am and I'm a New Yorker in Israel and I'm doing fashion and everything is like on the outside, right? Looks great.
Yeah.
And then I got onto a TV show and I remember in one of the interviews, I felt as if someone had gone in my body and just pulled all that like layers of confidence
Mm.
out of my body during an interview where I was all like this. All of a sudden I went and I felt insecure because I didn't know. That was literally the point where I felt almost like the air was taken out of like I'm speaking on, on a high spiritual level, but this is what my belief is,
Yeah.
that it was almost like I was being told to step it up in my spiritual path
Mm.
and my
Just from
belief.
the questions he asked you?
I don't think it wasn't necessarily, maybe it was a question that was being asked. I don't think it was necessarily a trigger. I think it was a sign from God, from the universe, from whatever, is leading my path, to say, okay, now you're going on a TV show. Like you're really going in there, So this is where the change needs to happen. You may have gotten the signs before and you didn't see them, right? And now now the self-work needs to start happening, and we're going to put you in the most difficult place to do it, because going into the amazing race with losing my facade of self-confidence was a huge spiritual awakening for me, because I had to go in deep, deep to find the strengths. I couldn't hang on to the Maya that I had known and was comfortable with. And I did very well in the show. I made it to the end.
Oh, wow.
But the I would say something happened where I found out my true inner strength and got to know myself better. And that's where the journey kind of started. I was around 27. I mean, the journey started way before, we know this, but
Yeah.
this is where it was the awakened point. That it was almost like I had to be in Israel, be in the show in order to be awakened.
Yeah, what in the show, this something that you're very exposed in the show, did that kind of help you get to that insight that you're exposed to the world, that everybody can see you, and maybe people can understand if you're what's real, what's not real, what's your strengths, what's behind your spirit? Was that kind of part of it, or was it from a different angle?
Well, look, I didn't know what was happening as it was happening. Now I'm
Right.
just looking back, and I can tell you that that's what happened. I all of a sudden felt insecure. Okay, that's what the present time when I was sitting there, I was like, oh, God, I feel like it's like I can't, I lost my mojo kind of thing, like my pizzazz, and I'm like, oh my God, and I took all these things with me. You can only carry 10 kilos. You can only carry 10 kilos on your back, and for the whole month that you're running around the world.
Right.
So some things I took with me were these cards. I think it was the 4 agreements. They made these cards of all these messages, and I took that with me because I was always looking through it through the show. To answer your question, the motivation was that I was competitive, but also because it was being filmed, it's being witnessed. So your level, it's almost like if you're working out by yourself, or if somebody's watching you work out like a trainer, right? You're going to work out a little bit more in a group setting, at least I am, than I am if I'm just doing it by myself. Hands down. It's like the 5%, and here's the 120% when the whole country is watching you.
Right.
So so there was this conflict.
Oh,
Sorry.
Okay.
There's an inner conflict.
There's this conflict of basically trying to find my strength to get through this as people are watching me, and going through this space where I'm feeling not confident and not having the space even to sit there with that. It was almost like you got to rise up now. That's what it was. I had to really step it up, because here I am in the most stressful, scary, jumping bungee off the highest bridge in the world, and I'm terrified of heights. I had to find some place within me to really strengthen the my inner self to be able to even do that, and being insecure. So there's no facade, right? That's giving me something to hang on to. So that was the big awakening, I would say. I wasn't working in that field yet, but
right. Yeah. And then that kind of led you into thinking, maybe I should do a shift in my career also? Something? No.
Not at all. I did not even know what was happening as it was happening. I didn't know that all of this was...
Right.
I was traumatized from everything I was doing there because it was so scary. And then there's also the exposure. So then you come back, and then after it's aired, and people know you, and people are involved, and it's very loud and heavy. But my real life stuff, I had to all of a sudden really work on them because I didn't have the layers to hold on to protect me in a way. So I started doing inner work.
Mm.
So I went to life coaches and I studied all these different things. I became a yoga teacher. I became a mom. Also, this was like a year later. I became a mom.
Wow.
But the difficulties didn't fade. It didn't actually go away, the troubles. So I went and did work on myself and studied through shamanism and the Buddhism through yoga and Kabbalism through the alchemy work. I really did some self-exploration, self-work. I really delved deep inside, and I was doing yoga, teaching yoga while I had the startup, the
Yeah.
fashion startup. I was doing that at the same time. It was hard to let go of that life, I was still
Of the practical
like,
business, high pace.
no, just the old Maya, the fashion Maya, the New York Maya,
Oh,
right? So like that part, like that's what was hard to let go of, that like image of what I was. Like I was known as like this fashion, diva or whatever. And now I'm shifting into the wellness and spiritual world, which wasn't as popular and wasn't, as then it wasn't
Glamorous. Yeah.
glamorous, right? So I let go of, I slowly, I had to finally say no to that to make space for this. And the second I said no, when people started calling me to lecture on fashion, I used to have talks and I started saying no, but I actually speak about wellness or yoga or the chakras or it shifted. Like I rebranded myself just naturally.
mhm.
And then I was doing the self work, like a lot of the self work to become a better teacher, a facilitator. And this is years ago. This was like, God, like 13 years ago.
It was less popular back then.
It was, nobody knew like yoga was considered so spiritual.
Really.
It was like, you know, now every bartender became a yoga teacher, right?
Right, right.
Retreat, nobody knew what that was. So I would get interviewed still on TV for different panels on wellness before it was fashion. Now I'm doing like wellness spots, and I would get interviewed and I would have to explain what retreat means. I would have to really like break it down because people didn't understand that world and that word. And also meditation was considered something so out there that
Right.
just only specific people could do. It was very non-mainstream.
Cool. And how was the so how was the scene in Israel? I guess the wellness scene in Israel back then, and maybe how's it today?
Yeah, I've seen it shift, and I've been lucky to be part of that shift
Hmm.
because somehow the way I've been, or my Ye'ud, my purpose,
Yeah.
right, has been to be very much at the front lines of it, at the front lines of the trends or the front lines of, and that's not necessarily, it's not the trends that draw me to this field at all, but somehow I keep getting placed there because that's what attracts the people, and then I can speak, the words, and then they can come back to their hearts. So what would attract, for example, I've seen the shift happen. So at first, yoga was considered very spiritual and very non-mainstream, and I was teaching at gyms. It was before there were maybe very few yoga studios,
Hmm.
and then I started teaching on the beach because the beach, the gazebo beach in Aliyah, they wanted to have a trendy like yoga class,
Right.
and I taught there. The first year I became a yoga teacher, I was already teaching with the sense of it would draw these people who didn't even know what yoga was, but they like it was like this trendy beach bar, and then afterwards they would sit and have their drinks or whatever they would do, but they were drawn to this. And as I was doing the work on myself, I was able to use this tool of yoga at the sunset at a trendy place to bring people back to themselves. And then during Corona, it was sup yoga and paddle boards,
Hmm.
because we couldn't do
Wow.
it. Right.
A
So
lot of balance.
paddle, now I don't teach paddleboard yoga, but I did. And it was so trendy, and people like to come and take pictures of themselves. Yet when they were laying down in the end in Shavasana, I could see tears coming down their eyes because I was coming into their hearts. But there was something that was drawing them. Ice bath trend. The ice bath, like I was exposed to it 4 years ago
Yeah, now
in
it's
Israel.
huge.
And now
Now,
it's huge. I was exposed to it, and I got so excited that I went to this teacher that was the instructor, and I was like, I need to do this with you because I was already known in the wellness world. And I
yeah,
brought all these people to ice bath, and they wrote articles with me about ice baths. And I'm not an instructor,
yeah,
but I get drawn to these like new things, and that's what brings the people. I
yeah,
guess I understand that my purpose within the wellness world in Israel is that I mainstream relates to me.
Hmm.
I don't know why. I'm not actually it's not something I put much thought to or think about what my audience is. It's something about the way I express myself, my authenticity, who I was before, in the fashion world, my lingo, my language, that I bring the word of this world, of God, of whatever it is that we want to bring forward in the spiritual world, and I'm able to translate it into a mainstream language
right.
through everything that I'm doing.
You have confidence and charisma and appearance also. That's no small part of it. But you feel like it was something that had been a long time coming, from this life, from previous lives, from places outside of time.
Yeah, I think almost it's an interesting question because when I moved to America at a very young age, I was very connected to nature, and I was very sensitive, and I'd cry for the trees, and I
Wow.
don't know, I was like different.
Were you in where did you move to?
New York.
New York City, like Manhattan?
No, about 40 minutes out of the city,
So
Rockland County.
so there were trees to
There were
cry
trees.
about.
Yeah.
No, also in the city, there's trees.
Yeah. But
Well, a
yes,
few
Not
of
the
no,
same
them.
but I
thing.
was
Yeah.
very like something in my soul was very, and then in order to be social and accepted, and I knew how to maneuver myself to be like everyone else.
Mhm.
And I became this, like, my parents say that I was like the quickest, I was Americanized the quickest. They put me in a camp at a very young age, and like I knew how to just adjust myself to be part of the American culture, and became very American, and I knew how to play that role. And so I was that for so many years. And as I spoke
Where were you
before,
in the lineup in terms of age? Like were you the middle child?
I am the middle child now.
Yeah,
When I
right.
first moved to Israel, I was the youngest. And then they had two kids. But yes, I'm the middle child today. And I was very much like you said, and then it takes me to that point where that was sucked out of me, and I had to deal. Um, and I started remembering. So you speak about past lives, and there was something that came to me so easy. Like I got it. Like I learned about different things, and I'm like, oh yeah, that made the light. Like I knew what that light was.
Mhm.
Like no one had to explain it to me, or this shaman Dirk, who is a good friend of mine, who came to Israel a lot, and
From where?
he's like shaman Dirk's from California.
Oh.
He's African descent, but
Mhm.
he's very close to the Israeli culture. He was here a lot, and
Hmm.
I remember him telling me like, "Oh, you just speak to spirit. You just speak, just connect." And I was like, "Okay," and I got it. Like I got what he was saying, or all these little things when I learned about the chakras or energy points, or that our body's made of energy and that energy can get stuck each time we feel something negative. I understood it so easily and so quickly that I know that memory is within me from past lives. I've done many past life regressions,
Hmm.
and I've also practiced with my clients with past life
Mhm.
regressions as
Mhm.
well. So I do truly believe in that. And
Mhm.
I actually had an experience a week ago from this woman who Israeli, wonderful, wise woman, that I went to her. She's a father of a very close friend of mine. And she,
Wait, she's a father?
she's the mother, sorry. The
Woo!
mother.
And these days that could pass, that could that might be the
The
case. Yeah.
mother,
Okay.
right. So she is the mother of a very close friend of mine. And she does like clearing of evil eye, which I've been doing a lot of research on that lately. In the Kabbalah, they talk about it a lot. Because I have this sort of belief that if you don't necessarily believe or give space to something, then it doesn't exist. But there is a belief that there could be people around us, especially when we're exposed, that have hidden agendas. It doesn't mean I need to soak it in, but it still exists. And so she clears that. And the reason I'm saying this is that at one point, I mean, she was like smelling my grandmother and like the same grandmother I talked about, and she was like
How,
burning crystals. And what were you saying?
I was wondering how she smelled, but
She smelled the smell. She goes, can you smell that? And I'm like, what am I? What? No, I don't. She said, come here. Do you smell that? It's her smell. Like she knew, she could sense her presence,
uh-huh.
which was beautiful. And then she was also speaking about the fact that like my grandmother had something with her feet, and my grandmother at a very young age, 30s, couldn't feel her feet. She had MS. At one point, she wasn't walking at all. So there was all these things happening, but she had done something. She had put this like I don't know, it was flower petals and herbs in my hand, and she goes, smell it. And I smelt it, and it reminded me of something. It was very like ancient, and I started crying, which I was really I'm a very aware person. I'm a very awakened. Like I'm very spiritual, but I'm very with 2 feet on the ground, which makes me very relatable to the mainstream. But this smell, I was like, it just brought something into my heart. So speaking of past life, there are all these little things that like, and she was like, oh yeah, of course, that's from the past life. I'm like, yeah, I know. She's like, let me burn the crystal. When then the crystal will cry, will have a tear, your tears will stop. And she took a blowtorch. It was like, and there was like a fire in her
Blowtorch.
house. And she threw the crystal into the sink. And then the crystal, like one drop came out of it. It was like, and then my tears stopped. It was very special. Very interesting people
My
here in this.
daughter wouldn't have agreed to that. My daughter thoroughly approves when people cry. She says,
Oh
"Yeah,
yeah, but
it opens the gates of heaven." She
of
says,
course, no, she wasn't telling me
"Yeah,
to
yeah,
stop crying,
yeah, yeah, yeah."
but she was just saying like
Wow.
it's gonna clear that pain with you. So yes. Anyway, I all these things, yes, they do have to do with past life. I think me stepping foot in this country in Israel um, is a big reminder of where I'm from, right? Where my ancestors are from. There's definitely a deep connection here,
Hmm.
and I get a lot of. I would say since I've lived here, I mean, wow, I've stepped up in my spiritual journey.
Hmm.
Like I would. I don't think that would have happened if I wouldn't have listened to my intuition and heart and stayed in New York. Like my
Where's your
friend
family originally from? Like your father is from America, but his family originally came from,
from
or your
Russia.
the father. There's fathers and
My
fathers.
biological
Yeah.
father,
Hmm.
Hungary,
Uh-huh.
both his parents,
So
and
mine too. Yeah.
oh wow, and my mother's mother, Pnina, her family is 9 generations from Jerusalem. They moved
Wow.
from Spain.
Oh,
Ibn Ezra, there was a Rav Ibn Ezra who was close with the Rambam. So I do believe that also is something embedded in my cells, in my genes. Um, and my grandfather is from Iraq. So he moved from Iraq. And I had just done the ancestry, like the DNA thing.
Hmm.
And I got the results, and it was very confusing because it's like had a lot of Ashkenazi in there. And I'm like, I couldn't even understand what it was. Like there was way too much Ashkenazi. And I'm like, really? And like all this time, I thought like, okay, interesting. So yeah, that was really interesting to see too, the history of my family, my bloodlines.
Yeah, you don't look so you look like a hybrid. Yeah.
A hybrid. That's nowadays. That's a positive thing. You can use electricity. You can use gas.
Of
You're
course.
multi
Always
fuel.
I call it politically correct because I
Yeah.
could
cross
be
cross
Hispanic, I could
yeah.
be maybe Asian, or I could be this or Persian, or there's like endless options.
Yeah, I feel like Israelis, when you look at Israelis, they look kind of like a mix of a lot of different things. Like in general, like the typical Israeli doesn't look like one kind of origin. He looks like a mix of many nations.
Yeah, I always said like the Israelis are the most beautiful people in the world, and I can also give a spiritual explanation for that
Okay.
because scientifically or factually, the people who have nice looking features are more listened to. Okay,
Uh-huh.
they're more looked at, they're more successful. And
Mm-hmm.
it's very interesting because I always said, like, before I would go on morning shows, I would really make sure to look really standoutish. You know, it was very important to me because because the information I'm speaking is important. It goes in the same realm of the trendy, ice baths, or to bring the people, right, to get their
Right.
attention. And I was always make sure with the makeup artist and everything to look
Hmm.
really on top of my game so that if people are flipping channels or sitting at the, I don't know, dentist office and see in the morning show a woman that looks nice, they'll look, maybe, they'll look at it. I mean, that's the way of the world.
Right.
The world is
Mm-hmm.
very material, and they look at it and then they listen, and maybe I can get their attention that there is nothing different between us,
Right. But how
right?
how how did how did it become? Sorry, I'm interrupting. But how did it become so trendy? Because always the West was so skeptical about things that came from the East. Oh, it's not scientific. It's not based with all these research and all these papers. It could be it's things that exist like thousands of years. But how did it pass those barriers of saying this is knowledge? It's not the same conventional knowledge we're used to having now. It doesn't have all these, not backed by studies and statistical models and whatever and etc. But we are taking some of it or part of it or people who adopted most of it. I guess maybe it's after
Yeah.
the army trips. I'm trying to think. Maybe people
Mm.
came went travel to India and or to South America to all these ayahuasca ceremonies, or maybe people were exposed to them after the
And
army. But how do you think? I don't know. In general, the
it's
West. How do you
it's
think
the
they
West,
adopted?
yeah, not just Israel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there's two sides to it. There's the like spiritual answer, and then like the human answer.
Right.
Human answer, I'll give like an example with the ice baths. Wim Hof is like the
Yeah.
Bruce
That
Lee,
was that was my next name. Yeah.
right? So he's like the Bruce Lee of ice bath. He made it trendy. Ice bath existed. The first ice bath was in Egypt,
Mm.
right? So I mean, that was, but Wim Hof made it very popular, right? So there was that one person that came, and this was his purpose in this lifetime to make that trendy. So that's that. But then how
Hmm.
did he have the audience, right? So now I'm looking above, and the world is getting shaken up. They call it in the spiritual world, and there's a lot of talk about it through the Kabbalism and Shamanism, and every isms. They speak about what's happening right now in the world and in the new earth, that the world is getting shaken up. And when the world gets shaken up, people are hurting and they don't know what to do.
Mm.
Okay. No one comes to me, I'm an alchemist and I treat also one on one. Nobody comes to me when they're like super balanced in their center, because there's still a place to grow from that space, right?
Hmm.
But people come when they're hurting, when they're
Mhm.
suffering, when they're stressed, when they don't know why, right? And we've seen so much tragedy in this country, all over the world. The world is, since I would say like pre-corona, right? Corona time,
Mhm.
where the fears are rising and rising and rising and
Mm.
rising, and people need something to help them to hang on to. So they're opening up to that. And so that's happening as the Wim Hofs are rising, as the social wellness clubs are rising, as, paddleboard yoga and festivals, music festivals today have become music festivals with wellness. They're like
Right.
together.
Right. Right. It's
There
embedded.
was, it's
Yeah.
embedded, right? So,
Mhm.
so like all of this is like rising now and shifting because people are needing the support. They don't know what to do.
Right. It's like the native terror of being in the West. I mean, maybe it's the terror of being anywhere. Um, and the paradigms of the Western medicine and Western thought and Western spirituality are sort of have not always come through, and that's why. And this is like a weird thing, just to bring in a little contemporary politics, is the rise of the left, that, or Marxism and the left, where they're willing to junk all of Western civilization and to toss it into the dustbin of history, to hate America, to hate, and for no particular positive thing to replace it, but just like out of a feeling of guilt. And they project, of course, all their repressed crimes of colonialism and genocide. They project that on the Jews, but now they're willing to just dump Western civilization and replace it with, God forbid, Islam or nothing at all. Just like yeah. So
Yeah. Well, it's another way for people to deal with their inner pain, because everything starts from within, and
Right.
people want to feel part of something and part of a community. So that's what's drawing a lot of people to this kind of thing.
Right.
It's They speak about it, and I don't remember where. I'm less, stronger with the facts and more the feeling and the things that I've heard and the downloads I get. But there was this, I don't know if it was an article or that was speaking about, and from the spiritual realm, that in this new earth, the people that are sleeping, I mean, the truth always prevails. This is what we've seen in history, right? Also with the Jews, to go very specific. And that what's going to happen in this new earth, the people that are sleeping, I call them the sleepers because they're stuck in their own pain. People are going out and doing this, right? Like, think of like individuals, like in your friends that's always angry, right? They're stuck in their own loop. It affects other people, but it's really their own loop that they're hurting, right? So they're hurting, they're stuck in this dark space, and the other people are seeing more of the truth and rising above it. And they say that there's going to be this balance, that they're just going to stay asleep in their space. But I'm not afraid. That's what I'm trying to say. I'm not afraid of our future at all. Zero. And I live in Israel.
Yeah, that's like
And
you're the only
was a
Israeli who
terror-
says that. Yeah.
And I'm here to restore the faith in the Israelis and the hope, right? First of all, within themselves, and then it will generate outwards. Because when it generates outwards, that's where we're creating, because it starts inside, right? It's what we believe that becomes our truth.
Yeah.
This is beyond like manifestation. I'm not talking about we're manifesting something. It's like what we're being is what our world is. It's just the way it's always been. It's like even a science, your actions come from what you're feeling about yourself, right? So I don't have
That's
any
also
anger.
that's very big in Judaism. Hamaasim nimshachim achei halevavot. Like you do all these things, you do all these rituals, ceremonies, and they say that after you do all these rituals, then your heart goes after these rituals. Like you have to do actions, and then your heart will go after them.
Right.
That's like the
Right.
simple explanation.
There's also, I mean, I grew up with Alan Watts, who was kind of a mystic early on, a Western mystic. And I think he may have said things like the wisdom of insecurity, the wisdom of not knowing. And there's also an ancient Christian thing about cloud of unknowing, like being aware of how much we don't know and how much we can't control. And there's also a thing, I mean, in the Jewish history of where God says to us, like, oh, you're too well protected. We need to reduce your army so that I can come in and fight for you. It's like, so all these things, faith, yeah. But that's an interesting thing to say, that we need to restore our inner coherence, our inner faith. And because there's a lot, people have said that the problem in Israel are not so much from the outside, but rather that from the inside. Like we have whatever, these demonstrations and people saying, like, take down the government, when we're super as stressed as we can be on the outside. I mean, not as God, I don't want to say that because it could get much worse, but They say that's the bigger problem is the internal lack of cohesion, of
Yeah,
unity. Mm.
yeah, yeah, yeah. People, when we feel connected to ourselves, we can connect to others. It softens us. I see it. I see it. I work with so many different organizations, from like, the Wix and the high tech and also the army, the IDF, and all these different organizations. And you see people come in one way and then they soften. And when they soften to each other too. I just see it happening in an hour. They just kind of are like kinder to each other. And it's interesting because I've been
Yeah.
doing retreats here for, I don't know, 12 years. And I've seen a shift of what happens in the retreats. Like right now in my last retreat, where, we do a closing circle every retreat and people say what they got out of it and what, what workshop they connected to and what they this and how they feel and how they. And in this last retreat, something else happened. It was kind of magical. No one talked about the workshops. No one talked about me, which I like that because I was just holding the space and the facilitator.
Mm.
All they talked about was the connection, each one, the connection that they found within each other. I was like, yes. Like I had goosebumps. Like I don't need to hear, yes, Maya, thank you. You were they saw each other. And I think that there's such a need for that here. And this is where I want to be building, right? This
Yeah.
is where I want to take the work that I do, is that they connect to each other. I don't need that stage. I need to hold a safe space for them.
Yeah, especially today when people are not even connected to themselves because they were part cyborg, right? You're not like
Mhm.
I even spoke to
Yeah.
like with a few
Excuse me?
I'll explain. I even spoke. I had this like hitchhike with a psychologist not long ago, and he said, "Yeah, listen, we're not addicted to our phone anymore. It's part of us. Like it's not saying, oh man, I was on my phone today for 5 hours as a basta. Like oh what a bummer." It's like no, this is part of you. Like you know how to navigate much better. You can search everything in 3 seconds. Like it's not like oh we're addicted to our phone. It's our phone is part of us. It's like just having another hand or an arm or whatever. It's
Hmm.
not even an addiction anymore. It's just part of
Yeah.
who you are. And yeah, not being connected, and people feel that I guess in all industries because everything's becoming digitalized,
Yeah.
like except like the
I
few. Yeah.
think, yeah. And I think it's interesting you use the word addiction, because addiction is not necessarily, right? Like you said, the phone is already part of us. What are you using it for? What are you looking at the phone? What are
Yeah,
you searching for in your phone?
yeah. The
The,
content
the,
is important. Yeah,
mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
that's what I'm saying. It's not an addiction. It's just like having another function. It's like not saying oh I'm always on my phone all day, because if you're like reading whatever, if you're reading the research on whatever top research in the world, or if you're just like scrolling on TikTok, it's very different. So
Or
when you
at the
see someone
news
on your
every.
phone, he's like, oh, he's just wasting his time. But it could be he's reinventing the next biggest invention, and the phone is just like a computer. There's no difference between your
Mhm.
laptop today and the phone. It's just like yeah, just it's a smaller
Yeah.
size.
Like I don't even look at the news here. I really don't.
Yeah,
And I don't feel I need to because I'm here also.
right.
But there are other people,
Yeah,
and most people are always on the news. It almost makes
yeah. It's a
they
cortisol.
think,
Yeah,
right, and it's an illusion of making them feel safe and in control, when, like you said before, we're
yeah.
actually not in control of
I
anything.
think it's also like a conscience. Like if you don't know what happened, oh, you didn't know there was a huge pigua yesterday. Like, oh, I'm not connected. I don't care. Like also listening to the news, and people who like watching the news. There's people like, oh, I'm connected to what's happening to the nation. They
You
see,
can't not
I know
know.
everything that's happening. But that you
Yeah.
watch the news also doesn't mean it's gonna inspire you to do anything. That's a people watch like most people just watch news all day, but there's not okay. I saw this amazing article. Now I'll go and I'll do something. Most
Hmm.
people just like are passive. Yeah.
It's like a soap opera.
Yeah.
And I can say that even you can't not know. I couldn't not know. I was in the middle of a workout with the music and everything. And the trainer went to like his secretary and he came back because we heard him say like, oh, hello. And then he was like, can I pico? Like
Hmm.
it's not, it's like
Right.
built in here.
Yeah, you
It's
have to
built
be
in. Just,
deep in your hole to miss the piguim. Yeah, miss
yeah. And I was just
stereotypes.
saying yesterday on my Instagram, I was showing, I went to lead a mindfulness workshop for a company, for a high tech company, and
Hmm.
And as I'm walking, I'm like, yeah, okay, yesterday a missile fell in the airport in Eilat.
Hmm.
Today we had a terror attack. 6 people were killed. And we, as Israelis, as humans, we like go on. Like we don't, we
Yeah.
continue our day with a heavy heart. But like we don't know what else to do other than that,
Yeah.
right? There's nothing we
And,
can
and it's really sad. You get
do.
used to it. That's the worst part. You get used to people dying.
Well, the resilience here is
Yeah.
very strong. So that's the
Yeah.
positive aspect, is that the people keep going, because we would be, I always say to people who are feeling guilty for smiling, with all the hostages that are still there and all the families that are suffering, feeling guilty for taking a vacation. And I said, no, no, no. Because if we carry everyone's pain on our shoulders, we're going to fall. And if we fall,
Right.
also,
Yeah.
we're all just going to like
And
fall,
also, what are
right?
you fighting for? You're fighting when you come back from Gaza. If somebody's a combat soldier, you're fighting to go back and see people's like. If I know it's hard for people. I had friends who've like fought in all the different fronts, and sometimes they didn't understand why are people sitting in cafes? Why are people laughing? But then I think a lot of them had the deeper conclusion of saying, "Oh, right, this is what I'm fighting for. I'm fighting for the West. I'm fighting for our values. I'm fighting for sitting in coffee shops and ordering your coffee and you don't have to be worried that terrorist
Normalcy.
attack." Yeah, yeah. So
So
you have to
important.
know.
I
Yeah,
don't want my child, after a terror attack,
yeah.
them taking all the kids from school and doing a talk about it and
Right, right,
make,
right.
no, okay, well, yeah, sure, yeah.
I think the best example is Churchill. So when they wanted to cut his they wanted to cut I don't know what was it, like the culture minister,
Slowly.
they wanted to cut the budget for culture in the UK back in World War II. And it's like, no, why would you cut it? Like this is what we're fighting for. Like why would you? So if we're not gonna have any culture, so what's the point of keeping on? Like what's you have to remember always is what's the purpose of everything.
Hmm.
I want to ask you another, maybe, I guess we're
Yes.
getting towards the end of
Mhm.
after 7th of October, do you feel like in your day-to-day wellness guidance life, do you feel the difference between people's approach to wellness,
Mhm.
to your
Yeah,
whole world now? Yeah.
yeah, I mean, this is terrible to say, but business is booming.
Yeah.
I mean,
Right,
wow,
right.
people are
Yeah.
like,
Yeah. Yeah.
it's nonstop. I mean, I'm a co-founder of a social wellness club here in Israel, in Tel Aviv, and we opened it right before the 7th of October. It's called Hermeses, and it's basically a space, big space, where people can just come and be, and there's classes and there's different events, but we provide a community space for people.
Hmm.
And when we opened it, it was right before the 7th of October, and then the 7th of October happened, and we were out there just volunteering during workshops and bases and all these different places. And so through the space, the reason I mentioned the space is because I seen the shift, through the space from when before we opened, and people were like, what the hell is this? A social wellness club, which is very popular in the States, but it was so new in Israel. It's not a gym, it's not a yoga studio. So
Hmm.
what is it, right? And wow, like people are just walking in to just sit. We have Nova survivors just working from there all day, like
Wow.
because the community there is heart centered. Just in general, the people that are there, it's like giving a space, a safe space for people to be.
Hmm.
And I do feel the shift. There is a sadness, a heaviness to a lot of people. So I know in my work has shifted. And
Right.
that's just God's work through me, because it's not something I had planned, but I feel like I'm restoring the faith and hope in people through retreats, through this. Those are all just tools,
Right.
but there's people have lost faith.
Yeah.
But yet, there, as Douglas Murray has said, the Israeli kids are willing to fight and unfortunately die sometimes for this civilization, for this country,
Yeah.
for the people, and that's not a common thing in Western
Yeah.
Yeah.
in the
Now
Western
nobody has
world.
any nobody my age has any nation pride in any other countries in the West.
No.
Especially when you travel, you speak to some. He's like, "Are you Span?" He's like, "You're from Spain. Are you proud to be Spain?" No, I don't care. I wouldn't give he doesn't care where he lives. If he lives in Spain, what happens to Spain? What happens to his country? Like everything's so international.
And part of it is, I think, their denial of their own history. When we were in Spain, like 10 something years ago, I did a bus tour, and they spoke as if Spain had been around for like 30 years, and that there was no prior history. There was no fascism in Spain. There was no Inquisition. There were none of these, bottomless, terrible things that happened there. And that's like in our history, we don't deny, we don't run away from all the bad things that happened, and we even memorialize them every year. And
Wow.
yeah, and I think
That's really powerful. Wow. That's so true. There's something, it goes back to the beginning of the conversation when we
mhm,
talked about the bluntness and the realness and the authentic parts of ourselves that we see as Israelis, as
right,
Jews.
Yeah.
Wow. Interesting.
yeah.
Let me. Oh, you have a question? Yeah.
No, I'm good.
I just like think. What's time wise? What's I don't
What,
know how you feeling time wise. Do you have a few more questions or last question? No, yeah.
And a few more minutes.
Okay.
okay.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to ask a question about I don't know even how no talking about bluntness, um, like the idea of killing, like that's defending
That's pretty
your
blunt.
country. That's pretty blunt. I bet that doesn't come up in too many wellness retreats. I mean maybe it does in Israel, but it's not like we're Jains. Like we wear masks to avoid killing mosquitoes or something. And we eat meat and we do all those things, and we have to kill our neighbors before they kill us, or because they're trying to kill us.
Yeah.
And um, it's not an unusual thing in the history of the world that killing has been considered a spiritual exercise or a spiritual requirement. I mean, other religions have done it systematically, and because they've done that, their contemporaries project that guilt onto us. We've never done it. We've never killed another group systematically because they're another group. Well, there,
Right.
um,
Right. Right.
uh,
Always defending ourselves. Right.
right, and but yet there's the Gaon of Vilna, said, or is said to have said by some of his students, that that's how we resolve this situation is through war. That
Mm.
war is, in some situations, especially when it's a war of survival, um, that it's a required thing. And I think even the Rambam, talking about ancient rabbis, has said that in a war of survival, it's not in normal wars you do save the civilians, but in a war of survival, I mean, I hate to make this public, but it is true that in a war of survival, the Jews are not meant to save the civilians. But that's obviously we're not going after the civilians, and like our
Mm.
enemies are. Our enemies are mainly going after the civilians, and
Yeah.
we take 10 measures out of 10 to avoid doing that.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, it's a very big controversy and challenge. I,
yeah,
I just want to put aside that on my retreats or workshops, I don't really talk about at all about the war or
hmm
about
hmm
anything that's happening, or,
Hmm.
we spread light to the world, but people are so, they're like surrounded by that all the
They talk
time.
about it enough. Yeah, they don't need you to talk about it.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah.
hmm
Just
hmm
want them to focus on strengthening
Yeah.
themselves. But going on the same note, this when you were speaking, and when we're dealing with enemies that see life in such a different way and humans in such a different way than we see it, that it's so hard as Westerners to even understand it. It reminds me of this very terrible like survival story of one of the Nova participants. She was captured and with a friend of hers, and they were both very scared, but what she was doing is offering to help this terrorist pick up cigarette butts to find him cigarettes and beer.
What,
And
at the Nova?
at the Nova, she was
Like,
captured with another, and they were walking them to one of the jeeps or whatever. There was chaos happening all around. And he must have been some sort of, bigger leader guy. I don't know what. But she was like, oh, she saw, I guess, that he was smoking. And she was like, oh, let me get this for you. And
Whoa.
not show her fear. And her friend, who was like, please don't kill me, don't kill me. He got shot right away because he was
Oh
shot
man.
years, which is what their mentality does not respect the natural human emotions that
Well,
we have.
it's an animal thing. Like when you show fear to an animal, that's an invitation to aggression. It's not. Yeah.
And how she survived is right before they were gonna
Not that we can judge them, like it's a.
Go ahead. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
right before she survived, right before he was about to load her onto the truck, he's like, go run, and he let her go.
Whoa.
Oh.
Ran, and she laid under the stage with dead bodies for don't know how many hours to live to tell this story. And it just goes to show, like, perspective on how, what it would be like if we were in our very human self of the kindness and the softness. Even like Yoshua, Jesus, right, as the Catholics call him, was speaking about having to also defend yourself and speak up for yourself. And we can all be these Buddhas and sit like this, but we'll probably get killed, right? We can all be kind and be like generous and please, I have a right, and be human. But when you're dealing with this type of enemy, it's very difficult to be in your zen. And this is where I teach in my world, right? In the world that I'm teaching in, which is same but different, is setting our boundaries, standing up for ourselves, speaking up, right? Getting stronger in those. So we're not always having to be this. So the world expects us to be so, but if we were this and so gentle, I wouldn't be here.
That's
basically.
right. That's right.
Like if we didn't have an army, because we believe in peace. And I believe in peace. It's not a belief, obviously. It's something, but the world works in this is the way the world works. And there is war and there is conflict because we're not all aligned, unfortunately.
Right.
So.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
I feel like, oh, you want to say something?
Go ahead.
No, I feel like the genius is mixing it both. Like always the solution is the shiluv, like they say, like the combining both methods. Like also, knowing to stand on your own end and being aggressive, but also knowing that in the West, it's always you're active, right? You're always active. Let's do accomplishments and get more things on LinkedIn, more followers, more whatever. But also the passive world also can give you a lot of value. You don't always have to edge forward, but to know how to balance it out. When do I need to be active and thrive for achievements, and when do I have to be passive and kind of acknowledge and soak in what the world gives me? I think that I think people who are like the most successful probably know the best, know to balance that out the best way.
Yeah.
That's amazing that he let her go. There was another story about a woman who was hiding in a bush. And I think she had taken some sort of hallucinogenic drug. By the way, they said that the people who took MDMA, like ecstasy, recovered more quickly and successfely than.
I heard.
No, you heard
I heard
both
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 ends.
stories.
Yeah, I also
Okay.
heard that they flipped out of their mind. Yeah.
Okay. Well, no, there are other hallucinogenics. I think that they really lost.
Right. There
some
were
of them
other,
lost it.
like, right, of how scary it was in terms of the levels of fear or where you're at. Yeah.
Right. But like the woman you met, this woman was in a bush, and she just was like, got into this gratefulness space,
Oh yeah.
even though she could have just gotten into a terror state, and she chose gratitude and survived.
Yeah.
And she was in the bush for like a day or something, like something.
Yeah, because fear is smelled, and fear makes us behave in certain ways.
Yeah.
And it goes back to, again, what we've been talking about and what's happening with humans in general in the world, because people are acting from fear.
Right.
Even all these, pro-Pali rallies, and that's fear-based. It's all fear-based. Anger, hate comes from fear.
Right.
Right.
So when we learn to be grateful and connect to our hearts, we won't have that urge so much to
Yeah.
be so angry and scream.
Right.
God willing.
That's a good insight.
It reminds me of that grandmother who fed the terrorists came and started looking through the fridge as they did in several places,
Yes,
and and she fed them.
Saftarache.
Yeah.
because she was, went above the fear.
Right.
Like just like that girl that was picking up the cigarette butts and being like, okay,
A
I
lot of
need.
unique
That's it.
Israelis, huh? Like,
But the scary part, the really scary part, is that these I hate to talk about them as if they're a different species, but I think they are in a way, like the leftist who invited these people into their homes and were friends with them and gave them work. 30,000 people a day coming to work, and Bibi gave them billions of dollars in Qatar and gave to Qatar. And then those same people use their friendship to come and communicate to their co-terrorists who to kill and where, who had dogs, who didn't have dogs, and they years of friendship and sacrifice that the Jewish leftists had given were fodder for the fire. It was just like like dry paper for the terrorist fire, and
Yeah,
I don't, and
I think,
that's terrifying. That's
yeah, but look, I don't speak in left or right because then it's a very human, right? I always look
yeah,
above the things, and it's just, if you think that there is something bigger here and there's some sort of, because things were going rotten at some point anyway, right?
yeah.
We are distancing ourselves as Jews in general. And also, if you think about it, the way you're speaking about it, it's almost like stories I've read in the Bible, right? There have been very similar stories
Uh-huh. Where oh
where
right,
the
yeah.
enemy, where our friend turned out to be the enemy. I can't recall, but I know I've learned this in Hebrew school,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah.
It's like it's a common thread. Mm,
Yeah, that enemies turn into Judas and all those. That's, I guess, a New Testament thing.
like our good friend becomes our enemy. Um, I see a number 3. Is that supposed to
yeah,
be
That's
yeah.
it?
right.
No, my
It's
camera died.
symbolic.
So yeah,
It's symbolic. It means
I can try this.
stands for the Shekhinah and no, no.
Oh,
This
I was actually waiting.
no, it's a symbolic thing, and also for Torah, the land of Israel, and the Jewish people, and Hashem. Yeah. Well, no, I guess so. That's what the 3 stands for, and
Interesting.
that's one explanation, a positive explanation of why, like so many of the Arabs they weren't Arabs, the Jews, who were given the choice when the Muslims came into Israel, whatever 1,000 years ago or whenever they came, and the Jews were given a choice like death, conversion, or leave the country, and they chose to stay with the land, which is not abandoning everything. It's staying with one of the pillars. So,
Yeah.
anyways, that's a slight positive spin
Yes.
on
Yes.
something. Okay.
Good.
Well,
Positive.
thanks so much for taking your time, and we'll hope to do it again. Maybe we'll interview some other of the past lives people, or of other. And we're happy to do this, as often as you might want, or as if you have other subjects you want to address.
Sure. Sure. Great.
Okay.
Thank
It
you.
was really good, Maya. Thank you so much. Yeah, the camera died on me, but I'm still
Okay.
here.
I know you're there.
Still here also in spirit. Yeah.
Thank
And
you. Thank
The
you
pr-
so much.
it was
I
great.
enjoyed it
Yeah.
too.
Yeah. Also, I want to know what was that? You went to this like Norwegian. I
mumble.
saw on your social media. You went to this like fancy Norwegian wedding.
That's the shaman I was
Ah,
talking about.
okay, okay. That's what I thought.
He married the princess of Norway, and I went to the wedding.
Whoa.
And him and her, they have a Netflix, they did a Netflix documentary on them called The Rebel Royals that's coming out this month. So they're like he's a close friend of mine.
Wow. That would make an interesting interview. Not about Israel necessarily. Does he have a Jewish past? That
He's like
he's beyond.
hybrid. He's hybrid.
He's hybrid. Okay.
He's very
Good.
high.
You like the
Okay.
hybrid, yeah.
But I could connect you to some people that live here, like my friend Amanda Ronson.
Mm-hmm.
She's from the Ronson family. If you know them, they're a big family in England, Jewish family.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Do a lot of nice work for Israel. And she moved to Israel. She was my alchemy teacher.
Wow.
And so she also took like a spiritual path. And so I can maybe connect you to her.
Sure.
Great. We'd love that.
That'd be
Thank you
great.
so much.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Thanks. All the best. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.